Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Legends of Sport podcast. I'm your host, Andy Bernstein. And as you can see, I'm still in the bubble. I'm in the NBA bubble in Orlando. By the time this airs, the NBA finals will hopefully be over and I'll be home, but you never know. But I'm very happy to be bringing this episode to you from the bubble. I think it'll be my last episode done in the bubble. We have a great guest for you guys today as we close out our Restarting the Clock series. This is the next to last episode before the series is over, which is kind of hard to believe because it feels like we just started it. And it's been a great summer of bringing these episodes to you throughout the WNBA restart and the NBA restart. Our guest today is the great Candace Parker, literally a living legend in women's basketball. I've had the pleasure of being around Candace since her rookie year with the Sparks, still going strong in her 13th season. I've watched her evolve as a player, as a mom, as being the veteran voice on the team, as being a leader in the locker room, as well as a leader for the league itself. We talked about the CBA and how that's going to affect the next generation of WNBA players. We talked about where she started, who her influences and mentors were. We talked about how the great Kobe Bryant influenced her in her career, her legendary coach, Pat Summitt at the University of Tennessee. So many great subjects, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Just want to give you some accolades about the great Candace Parker, which they're too numerous to mention, but I'll give you some. She's a two-time NCAA champion at the University of Tennessee. She was number one in the draft and also the first player to ever be the MVP and Rookie of the Year in the same year. That's unbelievable. She's a WNBA champion, MVP, two-time Olympic gold medalist in 2008, 2012. There's probably 25 other things I could read here for you. What also blew me away is that just recently she was named the 2020 WNBA Defensive Player of the Year. And also, again, she is on the first team of all WNBA, which at her age, 13 years in, is incredible. Both of those are incredible accomplishments. So I can't thank Candace enough for being a great guest, a great friend, and a great friend of the Legends of Sport podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I do. And as always, I'll see you on the backside. I want to welcome Candace Parker to the Legends of Sport podcast in our Restarting the Clock series. How are you, Candace?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. How about you?
Well, I'm still in the bubble. As we record this, I'm still in the bubble. When it comes out, hopefully I won't be in the bubble, but we'll see. I want to start out by congratulating you on being a unanimous all WNBA team selection, as well as the league's Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, that's quite the accomplishments in your 13th season at 34 years of age. I hate to give away the age, but
Good, 34 years young, Andy, young, not old.
Yes, I got you. Right. Well, your coach, Derek Fisher, dear friend of mine, great friend of the podcast, of course. Coach said, quote, "The fact that she," meaning you, "is at this point in her career performing at this level says a lot about how she still loves the game and has a passion for it." So, Candace, tell me, what continues to fuel your competitive spirit more than anything else?
I mean, I think just I'm a competitive person to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
My family gets upset at me because everything is a competition. And
Well, you grew up with brothers, right? So
I
that's
grew up with
natural.
brothers and everything was a competition with them. But honestly, I try to bring that into everyday life. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes me and drives me right now is just continuing to want to be the best. And, you have younger players coming along now that,
Mm-hmm.
they still step on the court and see you as somebody that they viewed as the top of their game. And so I feel as though like there are legends that I played against that some I left like, oh, that's why they're a legend. And there are some where I was like, man, like, father time. And so I just don't want it to be like that. And so I just try to be competitive and everything that I do.
Yeah, but it was such a unique, to say the least, season to accomplish both of those feats. I mean, you're in. Is it fair to call it the wubble? I know you guys referred to it as the
Call it the
wubble.
wobble. Yeah, it is fair to call
And I don't know how long were you there? Because I've been here for 7 weeks. It feels like 7 years, to be honest with you. But how long were you down there?
We were there for, I believe, 77 days.
Oy.
Um,
Mhm.
so, we got there July 6th
Mhm.
and was there. Obviously, I wish I was still there and was still competing for a championship. And,
Mhm.
the playoffs just makes like I just finished riding the Peloton and watching, the highlights from the game yesterday. Like
Yeah.
it eats at you when you're not able to be, those last two teams playing.
Yeah, for sure. So you brought your daughter Layla with you, right? Which is a lot different than the guys had over here, up the road, in Orlando. Um, how was that for you? The balance between work, playing, competing, getting your rest, doing all that. I mean, I know she's been with you almost your whole career, but this is a very, very unique circumstance.
She rolls.
Mhm.
Layla is one of those kids that just, we got to go to Russia tomorrow. She's packing a bag. Like, can I bring, this doll clothes? I mean, she's always been that kid that is just ready for an adventure and honestly makes my life easy. To be
Mm-hmm.
honest, she took care of me in the bubble. I mean, she likes to cook, so she does that. And, we get our exercise, our bike rides, and really got some great family time. I think I was
Mm-hmm.
really, um, pleasantly surprised at how it ended up for us because I was able to have my family with me.
Mm-hmm.
It made the bubble a lot easier.
Yeah, I saw some great, I guess, Twitter stuff of you fishing and stuff.
The things you do for your kids, I'm
That
telling you.
was amazing. So she was with you. Obviously, the league, your league, the NBA went through all the social justice issues that came to a head with the Jacob Blake shooting, George Floyd. The NBA shut down for a little bit. You guys, I don't know if you fully shut down, right? You guys still
We didn't,
played,
yeah, we didn't play games, so we
right?
shut down for, yeah.
Right. But there was an amazing solidarity there. Layla's at the age where you can really talk to her as an adult. I mean, she was 11 now, right? So I have a 12-year-old. She was very and still is very aware of what's going on in the world. Um, how important was that for you to have her with you while that was all going on?
It was so important, but I think in some households these are conversations that we've been having for years and
Mm-hmm.
years and years.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household that really was involved with what was going on in the world, and we
Mm-hmm.
talked about those things at the dinner table, and we watched the news, and when I had questions we read the paper, and I was encouraged to ask questions, and that kind of drove the conversation. And I'm really lucky to have that family foundation, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to instill that in my daughter and kind of carry those same values and morals
Mm-hmm.
um, now. And that's the same thing. Like we had conversations, we had talks, and anything that she wanted to talk about or what was on her mind, we discussed. But
Mm-hmm.
also, she has to understand, you know, she has aunts in the WNBA, she has uncles in the NBA that are trying to make the world better for her, and I think she saw that.
Yeah, very well said. So, Ken, it's got to go back in your history here. So, I watched a great podcast that you did with the Knuckleheads. I thought it was terrific. Those guys, I love those guys. I shot those guys their whole careers. They're hilarious. But you had some great stuff in there. And I knew you grew up in Chicago. I knew that before. But were you a Bulls fan growing up? Was that
The biggest Bulls fan.
okay? So there's this
Really
great,
hard for me coming out to LA. I'll tell
yeah.
you.
But you got to tell the story about the Ron Harper autograph, which I thought was fantastic.
So growing up, I was a huge Bulls fan and the biggest Ron Harper fan. Like
Hmm.
I had everything Ron Harper that I could find in stores and T-shirts. I was the biggest Ron Harper fan.
Even when he was in Cleveland before
Even
Chicago?
was in
Yeah.
Cleveland before he even came to yes. And then when he came out to the Lakers, it was like, oh, this is awesome. I followed Ron out here. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, so I was the biggest Ron Harper fan. Unfortunately, some of my friends got us back, and I was able to take a picture with him. And we came back like a year later, I would say, and it was like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, BJ Armstrong was in the hallway, and it came a point where it was like Michael Jordan was walking away, and I thought it was that moment where I had to get in line or I had to like try to find my way, or Ron Harper, and I made that hard right turn. I went right to Ron Harper, and that poster was on my wall until I left for college.
That is so awesome. That's great. I used to love Harp's game, and when he went to Chicago, he's so underrated. And even in the Last Dance, that's one of the knocks that I've read, and I felt personally that he was kind of like left on the cutting room floor or something, because he was really integral in that. And Michael looked to him for leadership and to be like a stabilizing force on that team. Even when he came to the Lakers, the same thing. There's that famous photo, wasn't mine, it was one of the guys working for us, of Kobe jumping in Shaq's arms when they win the 2000 championship. And there's Harp going like, okay, it's cool. It's like, it's all good, guys.
And that's, I mean, that's what I saw in him. I mean, just that leadership behind the scenes. And I really felt for him too, because he had injuries in his career. I mean, who knows what type of player he would have been had he not had the injuries he had. Because people forget, Ron Harper could jump out the gym. And he was actually supposed to be in that dunk contest with Dominique and Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And he hurt. So
I think he was in maybe the first one, because I remember in 84.
86 one, I feel like he was supposed to be in that dunk contest or something.
Amazing. Great guy. I'd love to catch up with him again. I know you're also a big Allen Iverson fan. You've talked about that. I actually have a photo of you. I was doing research for the podcast for photos. I have a photo of you doing like the AI, like Paul back thing and moving one way and go the other way. I mean, at your size too, that's pretty remarkable. And you're so versatile. I mean, on the court, I mean, that's what you're known for, obviously, offense, defense, being so quick, you can dunk. I mean, the whole thing. What area of your game did you have to work the hardest at?
I think the area of my game was just shooting, because I was that kid that was outside trying to do and one mixtapes. Like, it's kind of, you have kids and you know how there's some kids that just gravitate towards reading, and it just makes life easier when they want to and they desire to read. My brother was a desired shooter. Like, he was very technical, very mechanical, like, and very skilled. And so my dad and him would go outside for hours and just work on shooting. And to me, that was just so boring. So I think, I had mastered all of the, and one mixtape, throw it behind your back, between your legs, throw it off your elbow, the AI off the elbow. I had that 2000 All-Star game from when AI did that and Jason Williams was doing all his stuff. I had that taped and I used to just try to recreate that. So I would say shooting for me, because it's just so monotonous and technical and you do the same thing every time. So that's the toughest part for me.
Yeah. Well, I think you've come a long way if that was the weakest part of your game. So we've had many legends of women's basketball on the podcast, including yourself, of course, Sue Bird, Swin Cash, Tamika Catchings. Nancy Lieberman told a great story about honing her game, right, by playing against the boys at Rucker Park in New York, because there was no WNBA to aspire to. She just had the Olympics, which were taken away from her, right, because of the boycott. And she had great stories about, going out of the neighborhood, going up and playing in Rucker Park. You were 11, right, when the WNBA started. So you had the WNBA to aspire to. Was that an actual goal for you, like that you saw a progression that you're going to go to a top college and then be drafted to the WNBA?
At 11 years old, I still believed that I was going to be an Olympic soccer player.
Really? Okay.
I did. It was the 96 Olympics that kind of changed my view a little bit on basketball, in terms of that 96 Olympics was female power. Yeah. If you remember the Magnificent Seven in gymnastics, you talk about, the women's soccer team, you talk about the women's basketball team. I mean, across the board, women just dominated. American women dominated the Olympics. And I remember laying on my couch and I literally was flipping back and forth from gymnastics, to soccer, to basketball. And I would go outside and try to like spin my shirt around my head like Brandy Chastain and flip like Dominique Dawes, and Lisa Leslie was, battling on the court. And so I think that kind of changed my perception on my role models in sports. But I will say at 11 years old, when the WNBA started, I raised the roof like Cynthia Cooper. Comments were winning championships. I was out in my driveway looking at the Bulls, and occasionally I'd be Michael Jordan with the shimmy. But a lot of times I'd be Cynthia Cooper and Cheryl Swoops and Tina Thompson. That was my team.
Yeah, it's so great that you bring them up, because I have like two generations of daughters, right? I have my daughters that are now in their mid-20s, and then I have my younger daughter's 12. So my older daughters went and saw Lisa play and saw the Comets play. And now my younger daughter and her little friends, in the non-pandemic world, are going to see you play, and it's so inspiring, especially as a dad and a parent, that they have something, my daughter doesn't want to be a professional basketball player, but she can see this is a court that the Lakers played on. Kobe played on that court, and these women are doing the same thing. And it's a wonderful, empowering thing, I believe. And you talked about some of the legends, right? And Cynthia Cooper, you talked previously about Cheryl Miller. You end up going to the Sparks playing with a legend, Lisa Leslie, who I knew back at SC. Cheryl Miller, by the way, I shot her in high school right after she scored 105 points. I don't know if you know about that game. That was ridiculous. Yeah. And just a little too soon, she just missed out on a real career in the WNBA, unfortunately. But you came to the Sparks as the number one pick, right? Back-to-back championships at Tennessee. So you're on a team with Lisa, Delisha Milton-Jones. You're coached by 5-time NBA champion and my good friend, Michael Cooper, right? Who happened to be the guest on last week's podcast. So I called Coop to get some quotes about you, right?
Okay. Here you go.
He's got a couple of good ones. So Coop said he envisioned you and Lisa being like the Twin Towers, like Olajuwon and Samson, but he didn't tell me who was who. So who was supposed to be one and who was supposed to be the other?
Silk and Smooth. He gave us that name. Yep.
Right. Silk and Smooth. Right. Exactly. He also told me that when you were pregnant in your second year, he wanted you to name Layla Ace. Is that true?
Yeah, he did. He called her Little Ace. That's what he called her. The whole time she was in my belly. We would always go to the gym, the Lakers facility. He worked me out when I was pregnant. And we would catch shoots, and he would always talk to Little Ace.
Somehow that name didn't stick.
No, that's my dog's name, actually. So I guess I can credit him for my dog's name.
I love it. So your beloved coach at University of Tennessee, Pat Summitt, she told you, quote, be versatile on and off the court, right? That was one of the things that you've talked about that she instilled in you. So how are you living those words today? How did that inspiration of her, fuel you now in your life?
Well, first, she was the perfect example. There's not a time at Tennessee of me being coached that I didn't feel as though I had all of her. And little did I know behind the scenes, she was the best mom and, was still juggling doing off the court things, appearances, car dealerships, speeches, and still recruiting, still coaching. She did it all. And so I think I saw that example, and she kind of was that working mom example for me. Because I was so scared that I would have to sacrifice my career for my family or my family for my career. And she kind of showed me that you could do both and you don't have to have one suffer. And so I think that's versatility. And, early on, I was introduced to that, both on the court and off. I had to balance being a mom. I was 23. I'd just come off, rookie season and came into my second year and, I had to get it done. And I think she is the one that really challenged me to do that and to be versatile now, even. Like, it's not just about me playing basketball. I want to work in media. I want to do things that, in that aspect. But also, I think it's other things. What charities are you involved in? What are you trying to do to make things better? And Summitt, you realize how much of an imprint she left on basketball. And she left on every individual's lives.
Yeah. And you also said that you want to be remembered as a mother first and then a basketball player. So that's obviously an evolution. Before you were a mom, it was all about basketball. So it, that when I started having kids, it was the same thing. I was so driven in my career. And then I realized that I'm actually working for something, there's like a bigger purpose here. And I think that's something to be said, for what you said about having that as your priority, having your child.
It's interesting because I think you understand as a parent, it changes you when you have this little bundle of just energy and life come into your world. And it changes your outlook on life and it changes who you want to be and who you want the world to be. And for me, my daughter, just being able to experience the world again through her eyes and every little thing. And so that has been number one, that it will always be number one. And it's been a great choice for me because I know it is tough as an athlete to have kids. And then when you're done playing, you're kind of in your later 30s. but I never questioned that choice because we've grown up together. She's been able to see me through my career. She remembers being everywhere. And that's something that I'm really happy that we were able to share.
Yeah, yeah. Like you mentioned earlier, you gave birth to Layla in your second season. You're 23, and then you also said nothing was harder for you than coming back to the game from having a baby. I mean, this is after like what, 8 knee surgeries? I don't know how many shoulder surgeries, every other thing that you had worked on, in your career, and injured. Um, you came back to the Sparks only 2 months after giving birth. Looking back, was that, you think, the most prudent decision, or would you have done it differently if you had hindsight now, or what do you think?
I feel as though when you're young, you just kind of do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I wanted to do. I set a goal when I saw what her due date was. I set a goal of when I wanted to be back. And every day that was my motivation and I was working towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And pregnancy is one of those things where it was the hardest thing. But I had teammates that Lisa had just gone through it the year before with Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the way that she came back and, she gave me advice in the struggle she had. Tina Thompson's a dear friend of mine, came to the team, that year as well. So I was able to kind of share in that with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 2 people that really helped me out and kind of, told me the things I needed to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. Well, I want to talk about your legacy because you touched on it a little bit earlier. You have a great quote. You said legacy is something people talk about when it's all said and done, but legacy is created in the moment, in the present, right? And you're a legend playing right now. I mean, you have teammates who are like you. When you came to the Sparks, you were playing with a legend. Um, a lot of players are looking up to you. They're looking for leadership and all that. I mean, how do you see your legacy once you leave the game? How do you want to be remembered as a basketball player?
I think its legacy is where you take something. Did you take it and make it better?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm leaving the game in a better place. That was my goal coming into the WNBA, is to leave the league in a better place than I came into it in. And by that, I mean, even like the brand of basketball, the way that we talk about women's basketball, the growth, but also just individually. I feel as though, it is what you do every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've tried to continue to grow and to evolve and to change. I think that's the biggest thing is, people think at 21 years old, who you're going to be at 34. You have zero idea.
Right.
And if you did, you would be on the wrong side. It's continually wanting to grow and wanting to get better and to question yourself. And so I think that's what I want my legacy to be. I left the game better,
Mm-hmm.
and I continue to grow and evolve and get better.
Yeah, and do you feel that the new CBA is part of that? Is that you came in without one, and you just mentioned you going to Russia, which surprises me. I would think that you would now take some time to just chill, but you going to play now in Russia?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying
Gotcha.
we
Good.
went years past. We went for 10 years. So we were there
Got
for
it.
China, and then we went to Turkey. Now this I'm only playing in the WNBA. I'm not playing overseas
Done.
anymore.
Yeah.
I'm working television and playing
Yeah.
in the WNBA.
Yeah. And this CBA is a great step forward. My wife used to be a Title IX coordinator. I'm super well versed in all that stuff. She worked at Cal State LA for a long time. And we've had other women like Val Ackerman talk about, how important that is. This next generation, I mean, you're feeling hopeful for the WNBA? You're feeling hopeful that it's going to evolve even further, more viewership, more sponsorship, the athlete's going to be paid better, all of that, maybe 10, 15 years down the road?
I think the biggest push that we've made, obviously in the CBA, there are steps along the way that we've, progress we've made. Because I even look at maternity for me. I wanted my daughter to go anywhere with us. And I was nursing, so I couldn't be away from her. I had to pay for her. I had to pay for a separate room because I shared a room. So I had to pay for my own room, the plane ticket for my mom to fly. So there were things. I didn't get a stipend. There was no childcare. It wasn't that. And I don't even know if that was a thought for me. It was just kind of like, this is the way it is. But to see the progress we've made for even new moms now, maternity leave, you get your full salary.
Yeah.
Even for moms that are trying to have kids, later on, fertility and things like that are covered now. I do think that the CBA has made strides in that. But I think the biggest thing and the biggest step that people are acknowledging now is viewership, visibility. In order to want to see a product or to give a product a chance, you have to have visibility, and you have ESPN stepping up and adding us, a lot of games to their network. You have CBS Sports, televising a number of games. You're able to have the WNBA app where you can see all of the games. So I think that's a huge step in the correct direction. But the biggest thing is the investment dollars. Now we have the marketing commitment from teams that you have to invest this amount of money. Because, as an adult, just individually, if you don't invest money, you're not going to make money.
It's not going to grow. Yeah.
So it's just, that's kind of how, you got to look at this business model, and we had to change it. And I think this was a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. Candace, I want to talk about our mutual friend, the late, great Kobe Bryant, and what he meant to you personally. If you have maybe a personal story or memory you want to share. Also his legacy. And I mean, you said that after retirement that Kobe was becoming the best version of himself, which I thought was really poignant and something that I felt, but I was never able to put into words. I never saw him as relaxed and as comfortable and fulfilled. I mean, he was always driven and competitive, is fulfilled by basketball. But what he was doing with Gigi and with building the women's game, he seemed so at peace and so happy to be doing that, right? So what can you share with us about your relationship with him?
Well, first, I would like to talk about I know all of us watched Kobe as a player and watched how driven he was. And just being in LA, they won the championship while I was here, and I was actually at the game. Layla's dad actually was on the Celtics, so I was at the game.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I saw you there.
I was like, well, yeah, I'm family on the Celtics, and the Lakers are playing, but anyway, they won in Game 7, and I remember being there, and I remember having a conversation with my brother the next day saying, like, what do you think Kobe's going to do without basketball? Like, is he going to be that guy that's on all these shows that's like, well, I would have, I would have done, or like whatever. So to see that evolution of him being able to decide, this is time, it's time for me to move on, and to go out in the fashion that he went out with, that 60 point, I mean, it was a fairy tale. And then have his hand in, winning an, like, it's just, it was storybook and what he was doing for the women's game, for his daughters. And as a person that saw him play, and somebody, that we talked, and he was a mentor to me, as he was to so many, he would often have things and say things in a way that only Kobe could say them. I remember last year being extremely upset at the way that the season ended. We just got swept. Me and Fish were having our issues. The team was having issues. And I remember texting him, and he checked on me, and we were talking, and he was like, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'm going to just work harder. Like, but I was like, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of always taking bullets. And he's like, that's what heroes do. And it was just like, it put everything in perspective,
Yeah.
And so I think he just would have ways with words, and obviously he backed it up with action, but he just had a way with words that would make you realize, I just got to get back to work and just put my head down and do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, and look what that resulted in. I mean, I know that you would have loved to be playing for the championship, but on a personal level, what an amazing season you had. So congrats on that. But thanks for sharing that. Really, I appreciate that. So let's talk in the last part about what's next. I mean, it's not really next because you're already doing it, but you've made a great transition, seamless to me, from playing, which you're still playing. I mean, a lot of people don't do this until after they play, to broadcasting, right? Are you and Kristen Ludlow still doing the podcast? And thank you for having me as a guest, by the way.
You were an awesome guest. First of all, it was like, man, the pictures that you had and the photographs that you were like, obviously I've been a fan of yours since I've been in LA, and we always have conversations, and I always enjoy seeing you. I did not realize how many epic moments that you captured. And
well, it's just, thank you.
It's really unbelievable. And and to see your passion,
Mm-hmm.
it's really special. And so we are doing our podcast during the season. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
regular podcast. So when the NBA season starts, when it ended, even though it was kind of prolonged. So we
Yeah.
did our podcast through the,
Right.
the NBA break, but we picked it back up for the regular, for the end of the regular season.
Mm-hmm. So do you see broadcasting as the next phase of your life and your career? I mean, you're going to leave the game sometime, and you're going to walk away, hopefully holding a trophy of some kind. I hope, but I hope I'm there to record it. But is that where you see your career going in broadcasting?
I would like to continue it.
Yeah.
I think the best job outside of playing basketball is talking about it, and I
Mm-hmm.
do it anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
my agent called and was like, "They want to pay you to talk about basketball." I was like, "Really?" Because I do that on my couch every single day,
That's
whether it's
great.
basketball, football, whatever. And so to be able to go and you talk about playing with legends and like being able to be in practice and
Mm-hmm.
go through games and things like that with legends. I've been fortunate enough to play with legends, and now I work with legends. Like
Mm-hmm.
I work with my idols. I
Yeah.
was sitting at the desk one day and I had to call my mom. Like, I just talked with Chris Webber just at the table, chilling, like Shaq in there. Just
Yeah.
Layla comes to work with me sometimes, and Shaq, he will never let her win in Uno. So they play Uno at the studio all the time. She's like, Uncle Shaq. And
Yeah.
yes, so it's unbelievable to be able to work with people you grew up idolizing.
Yeah, and you're still in the game, you're still like deeply into it. So it's wonderful to stay involved. That's why I'm doing this. Honestly, not gonna be able to sit on the court for the rest of my life, but I love talking to legends, people like you, people around the game, people I've known and documented their careers, even if I don't know them, because I love the stories and I love being involved, as much as I can. Um, well, Candace, I can't thank you enough. I mean, you're so generous with your time, and I wish that in the normal circumstances, we'd be looking forward to a season. Who knows? We'll be back in Staples whenever, but it'll be when it will be. But congrats again on the great accolades this year. And I hope one thing I wanted to ask you, okay, because you are done with the bubble. I'm about to be at some point, in the next week. What's the decompression situation like? Because I can't. I feel like I've been here literally for like 5 years.
It's like 0 to 100 when you get out.
Yeah,
When
I
you get out of the
believe it.
bubble, it's like, yeah, I'll tell you, I am so happy to be home. And I think you
Mm,
become more appreciative when you get back home just
yeah,
because, anytime you're gone for a while.
yeah,
Um, but when I tell you, it's a memory. Like we're part of a historic season, honestly. Like we're going to
right.
tell, our grandkids, like, guess what?
Yeah,
This is happening. We were in the bubble. We got to make it
right.
all dramatic and everything now.
Yeah, we had an NBA Finals in October. I mean, how
Yeah.
crazy is that? Candace, you're the greatest. Say hi to Layla for me, and just chill. Just get some rest. Uh,
Hard for me. It's really
yeah,
hard.
I
So
hear you. But God willing, we'll be back on the court somewhere together, and be able to keep doing what I do and keep doing what you do. So great to see you. Thanks a million for being a great friend of the podcast.
thank you so much.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Well, huge thanks. I can't thank Candace Parker enough for joining us on this episode and sharing so much about her career, motherhood, her legacy, the future of the WNBA, her future as a broadcaster, which she's going to continue after she's done playing and has done so well so far. Candace is a great guest as we come to the end of our Restarting the Clock series. It's been a blast bringing this series to you about the return to play of the WNBA and NBA during this unique time and under these unique circumstances. We have our series finale coming up next week, and then we will continue with our normal schedule with legendary guests from the world of sports following our last episode of Restarting the Clock next week. Everyone, remember, you can find us on the LA Times app and online, as well as Apple and Spotify and your favorite podcast platform. Keep following us on Instagram at Legends of Sport, Twitter at Legends_of Sport, our blog, legendsofsport.blog, and our YouTube and TikTok channels, Legends of Sport. As always, you can find my photography on Instagram and Twitter at ADB Photo Inc. Thanks again to my producer and researcher, Veronica Ahn, and to all our loyal followers. Keep coming back, folks. Keep telling your friends. We love bringing these episodes and these guests to you guys every week. I'll be back next week with the final episode of our Restarting the Clock series from the bubble, Well, maybe it'll be post bubble. I think I'll be done with the bubble by then, but we'll be reporting about the bubble in our last episode. So come back, tell your friends, and until then, stay safe, stay well, and you know what? Wear your mask. Bye.